What is up, everybody? Welcome to the World Cup recap for today, November 22nd, here on Touchline Talk. Before I jump in, first be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the rest of these recap videos I will be doing throughout the rest of the tournament. And secondly, see that QR code right next to me. Go ahead and scan that to get to my Substack page. You can find all my written work there, notebooks throughout the World Cup, in addition to all of the other content I put out through the regular soccer season in Europe, as well as Major League Soccer, NWSL, all of that good stuff. Of course, we're beginning today with the game that probably nobody was really thinking that much about because it was the early game. So it started at 5 a.m. Eastern. Nobody expected this to be a particularly interesting game. And then Saudi Arabia beat Argentina. Saudi Arabia came out, played an incredibly high line, had offside call after offside call in the first half because of that high line. Sure, you can call that somewhat fortunate. That's probably fair. But also that was a tactical game plan that was implemented and executed well. You do have to give teams credit when they're able to be that disciplined with a high line. Lionel Messi gets the penalty, so Argentina do take the lead, and you feel like they got this under control. Come on the second half, two quick goals for Saudi Arabia. The first one kind of just comes out of nowhere. The second one was absolutely terrific. Again, sort of out of nothing, but moment of individual brilliance, one of the best goals we've seen at this tournament so far, if not the best. And all of a sudden it is 2-1. And then Argentina retook control of the game because they had to score. They threw on all the attackers. Still never looked all that convincing, and it never felt to me like they were actually going to score that goal. They looked like the 2018 Argentina team, like the Argentina teams of years past that are carrying this weight of Lionel Messi knowing he hasn't won a trophy for his country, which is one of the most interesting parts of all of this for me. Because since that last World Cup, he has taken that weight off of his shoulders. He has a Copa America. And maybe it's just because this could very well be his last World Cup. Maybe it's because of the pressure they feel since everybody was so high at him and they're the most informed team in the world. But it felt like they were carrying that weight again, and there's no need. What has changed and allowed them to look this good since 2019 is the fact that they're playing so freely. They're playing with so much confidence. It's all clicking, and you just didn't see any of that in this game. So they do, have a chance or two, but it was not this onslaught of, I can't believe they didn't find a way to score. Saudi Arabia were fairly comfortable. And so it goes back to these same questions about how do you get the most out of the players surrounding Messi? Can Messi deliver at a World Cup? Now, of course, he's gotten this team to a World Cup final. It's not like they've flamed out every single time. But this is 2018, and now this is starting with one of the biggest upsets in the history of the tournament. The bigger point I want to focus on here, though, and again, trying to keep these short, so I'm not going to spend too much time on this. I mean, the result and the fact that Saudi Arabia is declaring a national holiday pretty much speaks for itself. But this is not just about the group stage. Sure, this makes Argentina's life much more difficult, and the fact that this is a team with a group with three teams that feel like they have a real chance to go through in terms of Mexico, Poland, and Argentina, and now Argentina has to play Mexico and Poland, who we'll get to a little bit later here. You have to play those games just to get through the group stage because you should have had 3 points here and you ended up with 0. And now you're going up against two teams that already have a point on the board. So this is certainly changes the conversation completely in this group. But it's one game, and I still feel like Argentina are going to go through. The other part of this that's not getting discussed enough is the consequences of this moving forward, because I find it hard. It's possible, but I find it hard to believe Argentina are going to go on and win this group, considering the two games they have left. That puts them as the second place team. In theory, that means Argentina, in terms of a path to the semifinals, have gone from playing theoretically Denmark and the Netherlands, the second team from Group D and the best team from Group A, to playing the winner of Group D, hypothetically France, and then if you get through that game because you're the second team from your group, England is the team sitting on the other, in that sort of quartile, that fourth of the bracket up there. Again, this is all hypothetical, things could change, but France, England, so far so good. Your path just got so much more difficult. You go from two teams that you should beat to, I would argue, two teams. Argentina certainly can beat both France and England, but I would argue they're not favorites in either of those games. And this is part of me not being as high on Argentina as everybody else. Part of me thinking the fact that you come in with a 36-game unbeaten run just spells trouble. And now it's over. Certainly didn't think Saudi Arabia were the team that were going to end that streak. But this is not just about putting Argentina in a tough spot in the group stage. This is about changing Argentina's path to getting to a semifinal and quite possibly derailing Argentina's ability to win this tournament just because of the teams they're going to have to go through if things go to form, assuming they end up second in this group instead of first. And this singular game probably puts them in that position. Yes, of course they can still get first. I just have a hard time seeing it happen based on the way they looked and based on the teams they still have to play. Speaking of teams Argentina still has to play, your other game in this group, a 0-0 draw between Mexico and Poland. Mexico, definitely the brighter of the two teams, better chances, better overall control of the game, better of the play. Poland just didn't seem too bothered by all of it. And, Mexico's striker position is a little bit of a mess. So Irving Lozano, Alexis Vega, your wingers provided some creativity. You just didn't have all that much. It was a lot of kind of possession without too much bite. And then Poland get their opportunity. The referees are going really aggressively to stop people pulling and grabbing in the box. I don't really have an issue with it as long as you're consistent. Lewandowski gets his penalty, and Memo Ochoa comes up massive at a World Cup, again, like clockwork. Stops Lewandowski from getting his World Cup goal, secures the point for Mexico. You could argue they should have had three. To me, they weren't convincing enough offensively where I really feel like they were, unfortunate to walk away with a point. I think this was a pretty fair result, especially considering, Poland did get a penalty, whether you agree with it or not. And so this just sets up for a really fascinating last two games in this group. Saudi Arabia is the only team with 3 points. If they somehow find a way to win another game, the other three teams are in trouble because they're going through. If somebody beats Argentina, Argentina's in massive trouble because these two teams, Mexico and Poland, still have a game against Saudi Arabia they expect to win. If somehow something happens with these two teams and Argentina beats them both and Saudi Arabia picks up enough points, Mexico and Poland are going home. There is just every possible combination is very much in play with the way things went in this group on match day 1. Then we jump to Group D. Denmark, Tunisia, another scoreless draw, a pretty exciting one. There were plenty of things happening. Tunisia looked really, really good. Definitely the better of the chances. Just didn't have the finishing to actually capitalize on them. Kasper Schmeichel had to make a good save or two, but he wasn't tested as much as he should have been. Denmark came out flat. It didn't ever get much better. This was a concerning performance for a team I picked to go to the semifinals. They do, have a shout for a handball at the end. I think that was the right call to not give it. They didn't deserve that goal. If anybody deserved to win, it was Tunisia. But it's the difference between being unlucky and just not being clinical in front of net, not being able to take your chances. And to me, this was much more about Tunisia not being capable of taking these chances they created. But from an a work rate, from an organization standpoint, from a belief standpoint, Tunisia were much, much more impressive than Denmark. And this is the kind of result that opens up these possibilities, because Denmark is dropping points and Denmark still has to play France. This also could kind of really make life difficult if Denmark then goes and beats France, because then France has this extra incentive to make sure they go through. So at the end of the day, this isn't I'm not too concerned about this for Denmark from a points perspective and a table perspective. I'm much more concerned about the way they looked. Ultimately, I think they're going to be fine. The fact that you didn't give up 3 points, that you avoided losing your first game, is the most important thing. Denmark were able to do that. But props to Tunisia for a very, very good performance. Maybe they can keep it up. I do think Denmark's going to click into gear and this group is going to go as expected. But one of those dark horses everybody was really excited about, and for good reason. What they showed against Tunisia is not good enough at all moving forward. And then finally, it looked like for a second there, we might get 2 massive upsets on the same day. Australia do go ahead of France, and then France just pile it on. And it ends 4-1. It was not competitive by the end. But there was that moment where it was all kind of going wrong for France. You give up the goal. Lucas Hernandez gets injured in the lead up to that goal that kind of helped set the table for the cross that ultimately led to the goal. So you got to make a substitution. You lose another player to injury after you've already lost, your 2 starting midfielders, your Ballon d'Or winner. You're down a goal to Australia, knowing the other 2 teams in this group have already collected a point. But France respond in a big, big way. And the result ends up looking like what you would expect. The one thing I want to point out about this game, France's depth is just on a completely different level. Maybe Brazil can kind of match it, but I'm not even sure they can. And here's what I mean. So you don't have Karim Benzema, you don't have Paul Pogba, you don't have N'Golo Kante. Lucas Hernandez goes off injured. This isn't even talking about, Christopher Nkunku or somebody like that. Those are the 4 guys that you would be in this starting lineup if they were healthy. The players who replaced them, that in a normal world would not be in the starting lineup. Olivier Giroud, now tied with Thierry Henry for the most goals in the history of the French men's national team. Also, a regular contributor / starter for the defending Serie A champions. Adrien Rabiot scores the first goal, creates the turnover that led to the second goal, gets the assist on the second goal. A guy that, people not very impressed with. There was zero excitement about the idea of Manchester United signing him this season, to the point where I felt like I had to defend him a little bit. He's just one of those guys that nobody is inspired by, and yet here he goes. He's going to be in my best 11 from the first set of matches. And of course, Lucas Hernandez has to leave, so he's replaced by Theo Hernandez, who might be the best left back in the world, and you saw it in this game with his crossing ability, his playmaking, and what he does consistently for AC Milan. And Rabiot, by the way, regular starter for Juventus. You brought in 3 players who are regular starters for massive Italian teams off of your bench. They were not supposed to be featuring prominently in this game. France has gotten hit way harder than injuries than anybody else, and it might ultimately cost them an ability to win this tournament. That is a valid question. But from a game-to-game standpoint, in terms of just having a remarkable team on the field and being able to look like one of the best teams in this tournament, it just doesn't matter. Because these are the guys that are replacing those guys. It's absolutely incredible. And I just wanted to highlight this because those 3 players in particular, Giroud, Rabiot, and Theo Hernandez, were at the center of so many of these goals, particularly the ones that turned this game around. And then Kylian Mbappe got in on the action. Antoine Griezmann was really good. All of that occurred. But when it went from really bad to much more comfortable, that was the guys who weren't supposed to be on the field. Because France don't even need, starters for AC Milan and Juventus. Those guys are role players for this team. That's how deep they are. And you saw it pay off in this game. And also, finally, we have a defending World Cup champion actually win their first game and put themselves in position to get out of a group, which has been a real struggle in these past, 3, 4, 5 tournaments, is actually defending champions getting past the group stage. France certainly in a position to do that. That is all for today's World Cup recap. Thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to hit that subscribe button. And again, got the QR code right there. You can go check out the Substack. I'll see you next time.